What's going on? My name's David Page. I am a professional guitarist and singer, and my wife and I just finished a contract on board the Carnival Elation. Working as a musician on a cruise ship has been an absolute dream job for me. I'm going to share some of my favorite parts about it. But first I'm going to share with you 5 things that I really didn't like about my contract, and 5 things that a lot of other people didn't like, but I didn't mind so much. First thing that I didn't love about my contract was something called port manning. When a ship is in port, the ship needs to have an appropriate number of crew members on board to fulfill all of the different safety duties just in case there's an emergency. That means that there's a rotation, and so every crew member gets a letter, and that letter rotates cruise by cruise, and if it is your cruise, if it's your letter, you are not able to get off the ship when the ship is in port. I didn't realize that that meant that we would come to beautiful places like Nassau here, and for instance on a week like this week where it's my week to be port manning, I don't get to get off the ship. That limits my ability to get internet. It means that the food that I'm going to eat is the exact same food that I eat every single day, and I don't get to get off to get new food or different food. It means that I'm still stuck with the same food schedule. It sucks. It's not fun. It's not cool, and I wish it didn't exist. I understand why it exists. I understand why it's necessary. It just is not a fun part of working on a cruise ship. Over the course of our 3-month contract, my letter came up twice in the rotation, and Stephanie's letter actually only came up once. So it's likely that you don't have to do this very often. However, it does happen, and you can't control when it happens. And so if you happen to miss a port that you really love, or a port you've never been to, or there's plans for all your friends to go out that day, it's kind of too bad. We are in Bimini today, and we are going to go out and celebrate Louis' birthday. Louis' birthday is not actually until next week, but he's going to be port manning during that cruise, and so he won't be able to get off the ship. So we are going to go out, and we're going to celebrate today. The second thing I didn't really like about my contract was the Wi-Fi. Now, this particular issue was specific to the Carnival Elation. It might not be the same with every ship. It might not be the same with every cruise line. So take that into consideration. On our ship, there was free access to Wi-Fi, but that plan only included access to WhatsApp for text messaging. That allowed us to be able to communicate with our team members, with our manager, or potentially with family back home if they have WhatsApp as well. However, you can't surf the internet, you can't go on socials, you can't post, you can't send or receive videos or photos. In order to get access to social media, there was a social media package that was 24 hours for $4. That adds up really quick. And if you wanted access to be able to do more, like upload a YouTube video, or if you wanted to be able to access other websites other than just Facebook or Instagram, that was actually $10 for 100 minutes. And those 100 minutes go so fast, and if you don't log out of your internet, you may waste an entire 100 minutes of actual use of Wi-Fi. Not only was the Wi-Fi super expensive, but it was also not very reliable. There were plenty of times where I had paid for access to internet, be it the social plan or the 100 minutes of Wi-Fi, and the internet just wasn't working, or it was way too slow. That's not really a fault of the ship or of the cruise line. It's just really inconvenient to not be able to use the internet to communicate with the outside world. Something that made it not so horrible was that just about every day we were in port, whether it was our home port of Jacksonville or if we were at one of the ports along the cruise, we could get off the ship and go get access to Wi-Fi at a local bar or a store or wherever nearby to be able to hop on the internet for a few minutes and be able to send and receive photos to home, or be able to access social media, send and receive emails, whatever it was that we needed to do. The next thing that was really tough about our contract was being away from our friends and family for an extended period of time. Our contract was 3 months,
We were away from everyone. We were away from our son, we were away from our dog, we were away from our friends, our parents, our siblings, and to be able to communicate with FaceTime or to be able to send text messages back and forth, that's really nice, but you do miss the people back home when you're on a contract. 3 months is a pretty short contract. I know that a bunch of my friends had contracts of 6 to even 11-month contracts, and so I guess it's something you can get more used to as you go, but that was something that I found very difficult. And if I wasn't on the ship with my wife, it would have been even harder. I think that with relationships that are romantic for your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, that kind of relationship I think is probably going to be much more challenging to be separated from as opposed to your friends or your parents or whatever back home. I think that those types of relationships are very challenging to be in a long distance situation, especially when one person has all these amazing experiences that are brand new every single day. It can feel very separating. I feel like a big wedge is being drawn in between you two. I count myself very lucky that Stephanie and I, as husband and wife, were able to go on this contract together, but I do know that it would be incredibly difficult to do contracts separately, or for one of us to be doing a contract and the other one to be at home. The fourth thing that was challenging about the contract was repetition sickness. The ship that we were on had 4 and 5 day cruises. That means that new guests are getting on and we are cycling through the same ports every 4 or 5 days. Freeport, Nassau, Bimini, Princess Keys. Freeport, Nassau, Bimini, Princess Keys. Freeport, Nassau, Bimini, Princess Keys. So, playing the same songs all the time, playing in the same venues, eating the same food, doing the same kinds of things, the same routines, for 3 months straight did become very difficult at a certain point. I was able to combat that by finding ways to introduce new things, whether that was going out and going to a new place when we got to port, or if that meant getting different food throughout the day, or if that meant spending more time in the guest areas speaking with brand new guests that I had never met before. The other thing that we did to combat our repetition sickness was we were constantly adding new material to our sets. And so whether it was a new song or we were switching orders around, we found ways to keep our sets interesting for us and interesting for our guests. The fifth thing that I really did not like about our contract was saying goodbye. People's contracts overlap, and so throughout our contract we would make friends with people, and at different points throughout the time that we were there, we were having to say goodbye to friends that we had met along the way. We had to say goodbye to Steven.
Steven was on the playlist cast, and he was like the first friend here.
Donald is the piano bar performer. He signed off today as well. Even people that we weren't as emotionally close with, but worked closely with, like Jose, who was the bartender who worked the Atrium bar, signed off today. And for some reason that's hitting me particularly hard.
No one tells you this is part of this job.
That was so challenging to do. It was heartbreaking at times. It was surprising at times. Every once in a while we would find, hey, we haven't seen so-and-so in a couple of weeks. Where did they go? And we'd find out from somebody else that their contract had ended and they'd actually already gone home. It was really difficult to say goodbye to new friends over and over and over again like that. There are a couple of things that other people don't like about working on cruise ships that I didn't mind so much. The first one is trainings. As a new hire on a cruise ship, you're going to have to be expected to go to different trainings, whether it is a company policy training or it's a safety training. There are plenty of hours to be filled on port days where you have to sit in a classroom style and learn about the policies or the safety measures that have to take place on a cruise ship. For me, I didn't really hate those too much. I felt like I was learning things that were helpful for me. I felt like all of the information that was being given was necessary and important to keep the crew and the guests safe, especially in the case of an emergency. And the second thing is kind of along the same lines, but drills. I didn't mind drills. I felt like having to go along and go through the motions of what would happen in the case of an emergency actually helped make me feel safe. In the event of an emergency, I would know exactly what was expected of me, and I would know exactly what had to happen in order for everyone to get off of the ship safely. The third thing that a lot of people don't like, but I didn't mind so much, was the food. A lot of times, for the crew in particular, you're limited to eating in the crew-only areas. As a musician on Carnival, we had more guest privileges than a lot of the other crew members. I know that that's a privilege, and I know that I'm lucky to have had that, and I'm very grateful for it. That probably has a lot to do with why I didn't hate the food as much as some other crew members do, but for me, I found that there was always something available for me to eat. I didn't have to shop for it, I didn't have to cook it, and all I had to do to clean up was to take my plates to the proper place and make sure that I sorted my trash properly. That's really simple to do, and that made me feel like I was really taken care of. And so even if the food wasn't my favorite food I've ever had, even if the food was a little bit limiting, even if there were restrictions about when and where I could eat, I still felt like my basic needs were being taken care of in a way that was more simple for me than it is on land. So a lot of people don't like the food on a cruise ship as crew. I was happy. So the fourth thing that a lot of people don't like, I kind of already touched on, is the rules about when and where you're allowed to go. As a musician, this didn't impact me nearly as much as it impacts a lot of other crew members, and so this wasn't something that was that big of a deal to me. As a musician on Carnival, we don't have a specific uniform that we have to wear, but if we are out and about in the guest areas, we do have to dress smart casual. The majority of my clothes already fall into that category. I don't love wearing shorts, so wearing long pants is no big deal to me. We couldn't wear blue jeans. That's fine. I have plenty of black jeans or gray jeans. Those are fine. It was not difficult for me to be able to match the dress code and to be able to go into those areas. That meant that I could go enjoy any of the shows in the main theater. I could go and check out the comedians in the comedy club. I could go to the nightclub and listen to the DJ, do any of the different bars along the ship. After 5 o'clock, with Carnival, no staff member is able to be served a drink before 5 o'clock, so there is a little caveat to being able to go where I want, when I want. And the fifth thing that some people don't love about working on cruise ships, but it didn't impact me much, is there is no fraternizing with guests. We are encouraged to be kind and to be fun and to create relationships with the guests. However, that cannot develop into any kind of physical relationship, and you cannot enter a guest cabin unless there is previous permission from the cruise ship. It's also really smart to make sure that you are not alone in an elevator with a guest or in any area where there may not be camera surveillance. The cruise line has to watch their back. They have to take care of themselves in order to make sure that they are not facing any legal ramifications from someone claiming a sexual assault case against a crew member. The only way that they can do that is to have a zero tolerance policy and to make sure that they keep their crew and their guests separate. The only time that I did have to go into a guest cabin was when my mom brought our son on board, and so we got to go see them. We actually, took a couple of nights that we were able to put Ben down for the evening, and so there was There was an opportunity for us to get exception to that rule, but that's because that's our son and that's my mom. And so if you ask for permission and the circumstances are correct, then you are able to get around that rule. But as a general rule, that one absolutely makes sense, but it's something that does affect some people, but had no impact on me. All right, now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about why performing on a cruise ship as a musician has been the job of my dreams and why it's been an absolutely amazing experience. First and foremost, I'm performing every single day. I love getting to be able to perform in front of people. I love being able to sing and play guitar every day. I love the amount of performance hours that I've racked up throughout the course of this contract. Getting to perform with that kind of consistency is something that I simply can't get on land. There's a different expectation of us as musicians. On land, we are expected to be part of what draws patrons into a business in order to make sure that the musical act is drawing in a number of people that makes sense. We can't be performing every single day. But on a cruise ship, people are coming to that cruise ship already, no matter what. So there's no pressure on me as the artist. All I have to do is focus on giving the best performance that I can possibly give. Another thing that I love about working on cruise ships are the relationships that I've made with the other crew members. There's been no other job that I've held or other gig that I've had that has given me so much exposure to people from all over the world. I've made really close friends with people from everywhere, from the UK to Australia, from the Philippines to India, from Honduras to South Africa, all over the world. And these are friendships that I foresee being lifelong friendships and not just people that I met for a short time, coworkers for a bit, and then you move on with your life. There are some of them that I absolutely intend on continuing that friendship for the rest of my life. The funny thing about making friends with crew members on a cruise ship is that it happens so quickly because you spend every waking moment together for months at a time. You cannot get away from these people. So there are some people that you are going to grow to love very, very quickly, and some people that will grate on you day after day after day. However, focus on the people that you love and try to steer clear of the people you don't. Related to that is the next thing that I love about working on a cruise ship, and that is the relationships formed with the guests. On my first contract, all of our cruises were either 4 or 5 day. In many areas of my life, when someone comes in and out of my life for 4 days at a time or 5 days at a time, there's almost no chance that I'm going to remember them. However, with working on a cruise ship, these are people who are coming to see us perform every single day. These are people that are seeing us out in port and interacting with us in ways that are much, much more meaningful. The guests are seeing us all the time, and every time Stephanie and I would go into a guest area, or even when we were out in port, every single time we would have a guest approach us and tell us that they loved our performance, or they were in love with Stephanie's voice, or my guitar playing was so good. Whatever it was, that affirmation that we are always seeking as performers was plentiful. It almost felt like we had celebrity status on the ship, and even out in port, to have people come up to us and recognize us from our performances. There were even several people that maybe saw a YouTube video or saw us on a previous cruise, and then in coming back decided to bring us small gifts or cards or candy or drinks or whatever it was that they wanted to do. That generosity from the guests was something that was always so appreciated by both Stephanie and myself. The fourth thing that I loved about working on a cruise ship is the travel. To be able to have this incredible work-life balance where during the evenings, while the guests are on the ship, I'm performing and I'm working hard. There's load-ins, there's load-outs, there's set planning, there's practices, there's performances, the whole 9 yards. However, when we're not working and the ship is docked somewhere, we have the ability to go out and spend the day at the beach on a beautiful tropical island, or wherever it is that your particular ship may be porting, to be able to go see these areas of the world that, as of right now, I don't necessarily have the means to go travel to all of these different places, but to be able to do it, that work-life balance and that ability to travel to these amazing places is honestly one of the best perks of the entire gig. And number 5 for me as a musician has to be the commute. The commute to work is insanely different when working on a cruise ship. For instance, last Saturday on land, I had multiple gigs in the same day, and so I spent 5 hours in the car and traveled 262 miles for my gigs. On the ship, Stephanie and I performed in 3 or up to 4 venues in the same day. No matter what, we never walked for more than 5 minutes from our room to any venue. Not to mention the load in and load out process, where on land, I'm responsible most of the time for bringing an entire PA system and lighting rig. And on the ship, all I have to do is bring my microphone and my guitar. So I'm gonna throw it back to you. Have you worked on a cruise ship before? If so, what are the things that you loved about it and what did you hate about it? And if you're thinking about joining a cruise ship crew, what is it that you're most looking forward to, or what are you most afraid of? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one.